We will be this morning, Ezra chapter 2. On August the 8th, a wildfire broke out in Maui and claimed almost 100 lives, and most everyone that is left has had to start completely over. Most everything was totally gone. Think about Noah and his family when they got off the ark. The world was a totally different place. Everything was gone. They had to start over once again. And this scene in the book of Ezra is when a group of people, 50,000 of them to start off with, were willing to volunteer to leave all that they had ever known. Most of them, a few of them had been back here before, 7 years previous. But most of them had never been to Israel. Most of them had no idea what they were heading back to. All they knew is that God had told them to go back, and they were willing to volunteer and say, you know what? If God's leading, we will do it. If God's leading, we will go back and we will follow him. But starting over is never easy. And I find the older I get, the more life changes, and it seems like there's another new season in life. And we have to start things over again. The things that we're normally used to, sometimes they're gone. We can't do that anymore. It's over with. And you start over. And sometimes you don't like to start over. Sometimes you don't like the new things that you have to do and how life transitions and life changes. But we have to sometimes start over. And especially when God leads us to a new season in life, we have to trust that he knows what he's doing and have faith that God will be faithful through every season of life. So let's pray and look at Ezra 2 and 3. Father, thank you for your word. Thank you for the text this morning. Lord, encourage us as you wrote this down. You revealed many of the names to remind us that you are proud of these folks who are willing to follow you and start over. Lord, many in this room maybe are going through some trials in life. Another new season of life is coming where we have to start over. And it's something that we don't want to do. It's not pleasant. It's not something that we're relishing, but your hand is upon it. And in those dark times, help us, Lord, to trust you, that you will be faithful as we start over and follow you once again. Give us encouragement through this text. In Jesus' name, amen. So in chapter 2, we're going to see there was a daring decision that these folks were willing to leave what they knew. Remember, if you weren't here the last couple of weeks, we saw the background where they were. They were in Israel, and then God promised them, if you're not faithful, if you reject me, I'm going to send you to captivity. He did, and they went to Babylon for 70 years. Babylon, again, didn't treat them as well as they should have, and God said, I'm going to judge Babylon for that. God did. After 70 years, God had the Persians come up and defeat Babylon. Took them, they were now captive under a new empire. They didn't have to move. They were still in the same basic vicinity. But now a new ruler is over top of them, a better ruler, Cyrus. And Cyrus's mindset was, I'm going to let people go back to their homeland. Somebody showed Cyrus the copy of the book of Jeremiah and said, hey, did you know that 100 years before you were born, this prophet in Israel prophesied about a 70-year captivity. It's now been 70 years. It also prophesied you by name that you're going to let the people go back to Israel. He's like, really? He said, then I should do it. So he told all the Jews throughout the whole region, anywhere they lived under his authority, they said, listen, if you want to leave whatever you're doing and go back to Israel, you can do it. So chapter 2 gives us a list of those who went back. Gary thought he had a hard time reading the names in Haggai. Look at this list. We're not going to read them all. Because Gary's asking me, how do you pronounce some of these names? I'm like, I don't know. It's what I would say, but I don't know. You know, if a Greek or Hebrew teacher was listening to me, they'd probably be laughing. Like, that's not how you say it. That's okay. I'll do my best for the first few because I want to mention a few names here and for a specific reason. Hear this. Now, these are the children of the province that went out into captivity. Of those which have been carried away, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away to Babylon. He came again unto Jerusalem and Judah, every one unto a city. Notice this, which came with Zerubbabel, that's an important name, and Jeshua, that's an important name. Nehemiah, they're all important names, right? I'm not going to say that of all of them, but those two are the first important ones I want you to remember because we're coming back to them. Nehemiah, this is a different Nehemiah, Sariah, Realiah, Mordecai, that's not the Mordecai in the book of Esther, this is a different Mordecai, Bilshan, Mizpar, Bigvai, Rehum, Baana, the number of the men of the people of Israel. And then he goes on and he starts talking about the family names, the clan, the tribes. He says the children of Parash, of his family there were 2,172. Then there was the children of Shephatiah. He had 372. The children of Ara, 775. And he goes on and he lists all of these names. Now we're not going to read them all. Not that these aren't important. Why did God leave them for us? Well, God wanted to record for us in his fashion many of the names to remind us that he saw the names. And they weren't just names to him. They were important people to him. In a sense, God wrote this down, and he says, you know why I wrote this down? Because from heaven, I want to say thank you. Well done to all of these people. Because you know what? This wasn't easy. For them to say, you know what? I'm pretty comfortable in Babylon. Like, you want me to leave here, leave my family and friends, all that I've grown up with over here, and a comfortable life, to go back to Israel, to rebuild a city that's been burned with fire? I've got to go back there. I've got to not only build my own house, I've got to help build the temple, and I've got to start over. And these people don't even want us back there? Okay, God, if that's what you're leading, I'll do it. What a faithful group of people who are willing to say, listen, I believe that God is leading us to go back. Other people said, I don't think so. They give up what I've got to go back there. Like, that sounds really hard. And it was. It's going to be really difficult. Yeah, but you said people aren't going to like me there? Oh, no, they're going to wish you weren't here. And some people said, you know what? I don't think I'm cut out for that job. To which God would have said, I've called you to go back. I have cut you off. You're exactly who I need. I need the Jews, because remember, I promised way back in the beginning, I promised through Abraham, I promised that I was going to bless the Jewish people as a whole. And so I'm going to keep my promise. If only a handful go back, it's okay. I'm powerful enough to do this. But you get to be part of this amazing thing that we're going to call rebuilding Jerusalem, the temple, the city, the nation. And some people are like, no, I'm good. I don't think I want to do that. Some really wanted to go back, and they're like, I'm in my late 80s. Physically, I just can't go back. And they said, but I'm going to pray. I can't get involved as much as I'd like to, but I'm going to pray. I'm going to do what I can do. And so that's the list of the people that God puts in chapter 2. But go down to verse number 36. He then lists this. There's another segment of people. So in verse 2, you have the leaders. There was Zerubbabel, who was going to be the governor. He's also, in this text, he's going to be called Sheshbazzar, which is, again, just probably the same name for the same guy, a different name for the same guy. And then there was Jeshua, or Joshua, not the Joshua that crossed the Jordan River and led the people, a different Joshua. He's going to be the high priest, and then some of these other guys in verse 2 are the leaders. You get to the people, and what we just talked about, and in verse 36, you get the priests. The priests, the children of Jediah, of the house of Jeshua, 973. The children of Immer, 1,052. And it goes on, it lists the priests. That goes from 36 to 42. The priests were the ones who were the descendants of Aaron. They were important because they were the ones that would be making the sacrifices and caring for a lot of things within the temple to make sure that the ceremony continued to go on. They needed these guys. You notice from verses 36 to 42, not a lot of them. There's some. And they're going to be faithful. You get verse 43, and from verse 43 down to verse 54, you have the Nethinim. Who are the Nethinim? Well, the Nethinim is simply temple servants. They're not necessarily Levites. They're not priests. but they're the ones that will help carry on the ministry of the temple. They're the ones that would go and get the wood. They would bring the wood, they would get the water, they would bring the water, they would take care of things, maybe they would wash things, they would do different things. They were temple servants, and they were necessary. Sometimes we look at the leaders and we're like, well, Zerubbabel and Joshua, they were the real important ones, right? No. Imagine if only Joshua and Zerubbabel went back and they had no helpers. What would they have accomplished? Nothing. They needed the people, they needed the priest, and they needed the temple servants. Because when we think about that, it's ironic because this is Old Testament and God put this in place for us, and He reminded us, I needed leaders, I needed servants, and I needed the average person that maybe they couldn't do as much as some others were doing. And I got to thinking about 1 Corinthians 12. Remember what God said in 1 Corinthians 12? We won't turn there. But God reminded us that in His body, in the church, God has set all people for different purposes, but are all necessary. And remember, He said, listen, what if the eye said, I'm not the foot, so I'm not important, because I'm only an eye? Or what if I'm, just the hand, but I can't see? If I was a hand, I wish I could see, but I can't see. I wish I was an eye. Well, if we're all an eye and without having a hand, we've got a problem, right? We need everybody serving. And so that's what the Nethinim were. They were temple servants. Imagine if the priest had to do all of the work. There wasn't enough of them. They had Levites that helped, but these were Nethinims. They were not official, leaders in any sense, but they were servants, temple servants. And I just got to think about our church here. I'm the one who stands up front here. I tried to get Jim Murphy to come up and lead for us. He, for whatever reason, didn't want to do it. But think about, we come every week. And you may leave here today and you may not be back till next Sunday. But a lot of work is happening, going on this week. Dave, Bill, Tim, Jim, they cut the grass. And boy, they do a phenomenal job, don't they? Like the lawns just look immaculate every week. Dave's here doing a lot of other things, fixing stuff that's broken, taking care of stuff. Cindy, Lisa, Ella, they're constantly cleaning every week. The sign is getting changed. Bill, Gary, and Patrick, the deacons, and we talk about things and discuss things and help make sure things are facilitated. Michelle Kirshner handles the nursery. Julia with the live stream, playing the piano. My handwriting's horrible. Gary and Scott counting the money every week. John and Julia practicing the music through the week. Dave doing the sound. Peggy doing the decorations. You guys, probably missed other people's. Cindy cleaning. But then, we eat chips and salsa, queso, right? And you can be faithful in bringing that in. And we eat water, and you're faithful. And so it takes all of us, right? We all should have something that we're doing. And some people say, I can't do much, but I can pray. I can only pray. What a blessing, pray. I can get involved and I can be part of the ministry of the church in Bethel. And we all have the opportunity to be one of these Nethinim, right? He's saying, I don't want to be up front, or I don't want to be a leader, or I don't want to teach. That's okay. Some people will, but we can all serve. In some capacity, we can serve. We can help one another. We can call one another. We can, visit one another. We can send cards to one another. We can do lots of stuff that we can be involved in the ministry. And that's what chapter 2 is all about. It's reminding us that 50,000 people went back. They all had a part to play. They all weren't the hand. They all weren't the foot. But all of them had something that they were involved with. It wasn't, I'm just going to show up and that's it. No, I want to be involved. I want to do something. I want to be part of it. Between Sundays, I want to do something. Telling other people about Jesus. Inviting people to church. Praying for the ministry of the church. Praying for opportunities. Praying for the movie night. Would you take some time this week to every day take a little bit of time to pray that God will get the movie night into the hands of people who need to be here so that we can lead people to Christ. Again, pray, involve, help, do whatever we can do. And this was a daring decision for these people to say, I'm willing to do that. You know, serving God in 2023, it's not a whole lot easier, is it? The world is hostile toward the Christians. But you know, it's okay, because we have one inside of us who's greater than all. And God wants to use all of us in his ministry in some capacity. And that's what God wants us to do. Look at verse 1 of look at verse number, I missed some here in chapter 2, I'm sorry. Notice verse 65. Beside their servants and their maids, of whom there were 7,337, there were among them 200 singing men and women. Their horses were 736, and the mules 245, the camels 430 and 5, and asses 6,720. And some of the chief of the fathers, when they came to the house of the Lord, which is at Jerusalem, offered freely for the house of God to set it up in his place. They gave after their ability, unto the treasure of the work, 1,000 grams of gold, 5,000 pounds of silver, 100 priest garments. So the priests and the Levites and some of the people and the singers and the porters and the Nethinim dwelt in the cities, and all Israel in their cities. Do you notice what's going on there? In order to continue to make the temple work, to support the priests, the Levites, and others, the leaders, in order to do that, it took a lot of finances. And not only were the people giving their tithes, but when they found there were other opportunities, other needs, look what it said. So they gave after their ability, under the treasure of the work. Many of them just say, you know what else do you need? And they would just help, they would finance it. Some are like, listen, we can't be involved in some of the public work, but you know what, we can support it. You know, what would our ministry be if we didn't financially support it? You know, we can only do what we can afford to do. And the more that we give and the more that we're able to do that, it's not just investing into Bethel so that we can do more stuff here. It's so that we can invest it into telling other people about Jesus Christ. And so what an opportunity. And so that's what they're doing. They're giving. Get to chapter 3. He stops with all the names. And look what he says in verse 1. And when the 7th month was come, and the children of Israel were in the cities, the people gathered themselves together as one man to Jerusalem. Notice the unity. It's the 7th month. They've been there a little while now. They've gathered themselves together as one man at Jerusalem. They're focused. What are we here for? What's the purpose? What was the purpose of why we went back? And if somebody said, I think we came back here to build our own houses, they would say, what? That's not why we're here. Like, don't we have to build houses? Yes, but that's not the primary reason. It's all about God, right? And they were unified. They understood what's the purpose? Well, we're here to build a temple so that we can worship our Savior. Everybody knew that. You know, nobody came up with a dumb idea. I think we're back here to become the greatest nation on the planet. No, we're here to rebuild the temple, to rebuild the sacrifices, to get back to worshiping Jehovah the way he intended us to worship. Again, we think about Bethel, you know, what are we about? Again, it's we gather together to worship Jesus Christ. And we do that primarily on Sundays. And then he says, and as a church, your primary purpose as a church is to tell others. Go and tell, right? It's not show and tell. It's not live it here and just live it out in our building here. But he tells us we gather to worship and we scatter to tell, right? As you go, tell others about Jesus Christ. And so they understood that, the purpose. We should understand the purpose. What we do in this building, and then what we do is we tell others and invite people to Christ. So then stood up Jeshua, or as he's going to be called throughout the book, Joshua, same guy, Jeshua or Joshua, not the guy that built or destroyed the walls in Jericho with God's help. This is a different guy. Jeshua, the son of Josedek, and his brethren, the priest, and Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, and his brethren, and builded the altar of God of the God of Israel to offer burnt offerings thereupon, as it is written in the law of Moses, the man of God. And they set the altar upon the bases, for fear was upon all of them because of the people of those countries. And they offered burnt offerings thereon unto the Lord, even burnt offerings morning and evening. Notice they knew the primary purpose. What did they do first? They did not build the walls. They set up the altar. It's kind of backwards if you're a builder, right? I'm sure they didn't have to go to the township and say, here's our architectural drawings, here's the footprint, here's what we're going to do. They didn't have that back then. Because had they had that back then, and they said, here's what we're going to do first. We're going to build the altar, and then later on we're going to put the walls and the roof on. You know what the township would have told them? No, you can't do that. That'd be like if you said to the township, here's my house plans, and what we're going to do first is we're going to build the kitchen first. And then after we're done the kitchen, and the kitchen is exactly like we want it, then we're going to build the walls and then put the roof on. They'd say, you're crazy. That's not the way you build. You don't do it that way. You build the kitchen, and what about the rain? Here's the thing. For the altar, it had to be first. Why? Because in order to be right with God, they had to sacrifice. Because every day they sinned. Just like you and me, every day we sin. And so they had to build the altar first. And as they cleared out the rubbish, they apparently found the bases where the old altar was. And they start building it, and they put it there. And that was the primary reason. We're here to worship. And we can't worship God if there's sin in our life. It's just like, when we come to church on Sunday, our goal to worship God. But you know what? If we come to church and there's sin in our life, you know what we've done? We've sung some songs, we've listened to a message, but we haven't worshiped. Because in order to worship, we have to make sure that our heart is right with God. Because He can't accept it if we're not in fellowship with Him. It's like the Lord's Supper. He warned us. When you take the Lord's Supper, if there's sin in your life, then what do you think you're doing? You're eating a cracker and juice, but you're not celebrating the Lord's Supper because you have to be in fellowship with God. And so that's what we do as we gather together for worship, right? Aren't you glad you only have to worship once a week? Oh, wait a minute. The New Testament reminds us that my body is the temple of the Holy Ghost. I am supposed to be worshiping God with my life every day, which means 24/7, I should seek to be in fellowship with the God of heaven. Because my life is to be a life lived out of worship. And so they understood this. We can't build the walls of the temple until we got to start with the altar. We sacrifice. And every day they were sacrificing and sacrificing and sacrificing. Why? Because we're sinners. We need fellowship with God. Aren't you glad we don't have to do that anymore? You know why? Because we have an altar, Hebrews tells us. It's where Jesus Christ went to the cross. And once and for all, He died for all of my sins. The 1 John 1:9 reminds us that I still sin, and when I sin, I have to confess that sin. But I don't have to sacrifice an animal. I have to go back to the cross. And I have to remember, Lord, you died for that sin. I don't have to get resaved. But I have to repent and realize, Lord, what I just said, what I just did, my attitudes, my actions, whatever it is, it offended you. You died for that. I don't like this. I know I'm out of fellowship with you, and I don't like to be out of fellowship with you, and so I'm asking, Lord, please forgive me based upon your final sacrifice on the cross. That's confessing. That's our altar. We don't have an altar up here, right? Our altar is the cross. And we are thankful that Jesus died on the cross as the supreme final sacrifice for our sins. So they knew that. They knew we needed the altar. Verse 3, it said they set up the altar for fear upon them because of the people of the countries. They were afraid of the people around them. Why? Because they didn't like them. And they wanted to make sure that they were in constant fellowship with God, because God was bigger than their enemies. So they did that. Verse 4, They also kept the Feast of Tabernacles. They haven't done this since they left. As it is written, and they offered the daily burnt offerings by number, according to the custom as the duty of every day required. And afterward, offer the continual burnt offerings, both of the new moons and of the new set feast of the Lord that were consecrated, and of every one that willingly offered a freewill offering unto the Lord. From the first day of the 7th month began they to offer burnt offerings unto the Lord, but the foundation of the temple of the Lord was not yet laid. They gave money also to the masons, to the carpenters, the meat, and the drink, and the oil, unto them of Zidon, and to them of Tyre, to bring cedars from Lebanon, to the sea of Joppa, according to the grant that they had of Cyrus, king of Persia. So they've got the altar set up. Now they said, let's figure out how to build the temple. So now they're going to start building the temple around the altar. And so they're giving money, and then they're buying the stuff. The king had said, I can send wood down from Lebanon. They start getting it all in place. Now, in the second year of their coming unto the house of God, verse 8, at Jerusalem, in the 2nd month began Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, and Jeshua, the son of Jozadak, and the remnant of the brethren, all the priests and Levites, and all they that were come out of the captivity unto Jerusalem, and appointed Levites from the 20 years old and upward to set forward the work of the house of the Lord. Then stood Joshua, the son of, with his sons and his brethren, Kadmiel and his sons, the sons of Judah, together to set forward the workmen in the house of God. The sons of Henadad with their sons and their brethren, the Levites. And when the builders laid the foundation of the temple, notice this, when the builders laid the foundation of the temple of the Lord, they set the priests in their apparels with the trumpets, and the Levites and the sons of Asaph with cymbals to praise the Lord after the ordinance of David, king of Israel. So like what happened when David and Solomon built the temple the first time, they had this big party, lots of singing, lots of worship. It was a feast. It was wonderful. And so they did the same thing. The leaders said, you know what? We've got the temple. It's getting ready to get done and built. We want to dedicate it. And so they said, let's have a big party. Let's worship. And he brought the singers and they're worshiping, verse 11. And they sang together by chorus and praising and giving thanks unto God, because he is good, for his mercy endureth forever toward Israel. They're praising God. They're thanking God. Lord, you're so good. Now again, it's easy to say God is good when things are good, isn't it? Hey, we rebuilt the temple. We got the worship back. We're back in the land. This is wonderful. And they're like, God, you're so good. But what about when things are getting hard? What about when the doctor says, listen, I've got bad news for you? Do we stop and worship and say, God, you're so good? Because in essence, I think their mindset is, we had to start over because of the sin problem. We were in captivity. But you know what? Even in captivity, God was good. God was faithful. But never forget to thank God in the bad times. When you go through hard times, when God says, listen, I need to take this away, or I need you to stop doing this, or I need whatever it is, when the difficulties of life come, do we shake our fist at God and say he's not good, or do we say, no, you're still good. Your mercy endures forever. And then it said this, and all the people shouted with a great shout when they praised the Lord, because the foundation of the house of the Lord was laid. So again, the foundation is laid for how the temple is going to look. The footprint is there. They can see it with their eyes. It's not finished yet, but they can see it. But verse 12. Many of the priests and the Levites and the chief of the fathers, who were ancient men, they were old. They were so old that they had seen the first house when they were young boys, before the 70 years of captivity. So that means they're at least in their late 70s, early 80s. maybe older. And they remembered the old one. When the foundation of this house was laid before their eyes, they wept with a loud voice. And many, who hadn't seen the first one, they shouted with shouts of joy, so that the people could not discern the noise of the shout of joy for the noise of the weeping of the people, for the people shouted with a loud shout, and the noise was heard afar off. Why were they weeping and crying, these older men? Well, if you remember, the size of the old temple was huge. This one, not so much. And they wept. They're like, this is nothing compared to the previous one. Like, why can't it be bigger? You know what they would have said? We don't have the money to make it bigger. We don't have the people to make it bigger. We can't make it bigger. This is all we can afford. This is all we can do. And some were just weeping and like, yeah, but how can God bless this? We're not that big. If you want to run to Haggai, where it was read earlier. Haggai chapter 2. Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah. It's right between those two Z books. We read it earlier, and Haggai was the prophet at the same time with these people back in Israel. God called him and said, I want you to rise up. I got some things I need you to tell them. So you had Zerubbabel, who's the governor, he's the leader. You had Joshua, who's the priest, and Haggai, who's a prophet. Zechariah is a prophet as well. But Haggai comes along, and he says in verse 2, who is left among you that saw the house in her first glory? Verse 3, I'm sorry. And how do you see it now? Is it not in your eyes in comparison as of nothing? It looks like nothing compared to the old one. I know that, God said. Yet now be strong, O Zerubbabel, saith the Lord, and be strong, O Joshua, the son of Jehozadak, the high priest, and be strong, all you people of the land, saith the Lord, and work, for I am with you, saith the Lord of hosts. According to the word that I covenanted with you when you came out of Egypt, so my spirit remaineth among you, fear not. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, yet once it is a little while, and I will shake the heavens and the earth and the sea and the dry land, and I will shake all nations, and the desire of all nations shall come, and I will fill this house with glory. I will fill this house. The previous one is gone. It's Philippians say, forgetting those things which are behind. It's a new day. The old one was wonderful. It was a great thing. But because of sin, it had to be destroyed. We're starting over. Yeah, it's smaller. You know why it's smaller? Because a bunch of people that should have left Babylon and come back wouldn't come back. A lot of people that should have financially supported it wouldn't support it. You know why? So we have what we have. It's smaller. It's not what we wanted, but this is what I've ordained. And God's saying to the people, be strong and don't compare it to the old one. Life's different now. It's a new season. We're starting over. But you know what? This one is going to be better. Like, what? How can it be better? Look at what he says. Verse 9. The glory of this latter house, this temple, is going to be greater than the previous one, saith the Lord of hosts. And in this place will I give peace, saith the Lord of hosts. Like, I don't get it. Like, how in the world could this one, much smaller, be better than the previous one? You know how it could be? Because when Jesus was here on this earth, God became a man, and God went into this temple. Now again, Herod made it bigger, the same temple. Jesus went inside of this temple. Remember on the 8th day of his birth, they held him up? Peace. Peace to the world was offered in this temple. They didn't know it. They didn't understand that was going to happen. And they're looking at like, how in the world can God use this? And God said, because I'm going to indwell this temple. And if I'm there, it's glorious. You know, sometimes in our lives we look at, especially as we get older, especially as life changes and we sometimes think, what can I do for God? Does God indwell you? And if he does, what can't you do for God? You say, well, there's physical things. It's okay. That's what the next generation's for, to do some of the physical things, right? Yeah, but I can't do. It's okay. God can still use you to be involved in praying, giving, and encouraging, and helping where you can. And God wants to use us in great ways. And here's the thing. God reminds us now that you go to Jerusalem today, you know what? You look for the temple. You know what you're going to find? You're going to find a Muslim mosque on that spot. You know why? Because they destroyed it again. AD 70, it got destroyed again. There's no temple anymore other than right here. Because it was destroyed, and Jesus told us it was going to be destroyed. You know why? Because he said, I'm going to indwell human beings. You, if you're a child of God, you are the temple of the Holy Ghost. And so what an opportunity to be used of God. God inhabits me. And he inhabits you. And he wants to continue to guide us and direct us and use us in great ways. Matthew 7 reminds us, remember when the winds come, and the storms come. What happens? Is your life going to blow over? You say, well, none of it's built upon Jesus Christ. But if my life is built upon religion, the storm's going to knock us down, destroy us. But if my life is founded upon Jesus Christ, then the winds can't destroy me. Oh, it can blow me, it can beat me, but remember, he will hold me fast in those storms of life. He will continue to keep me secure. And so we trust God for that. Ephesians 3:20 reminds us that God is able to do exceeding abundantly above all that we ask or think. Again, through the seasons of life, through changes, through starting over, we think, I don't know how God can use me now. And God says, oh, I can use you in amazing ways. I can do whatever I want to do because I'm God. And I'm not going to compare your life today with what was in the past. Forget that. Philippians 3, forgetting the things behind, pressing toward the things that are ahead. So when we go through those difficult changes, hard times of life, sometimes fear paralyzes us from moving forward or doing what God wants us to do. But I want to encourage you this. You and I can trust the character and the faithfulness of a good God who loves you and he knows every detail of what he's doing in your life. We don't have to fear. Just continue to follow him. As we saw this morning, he gives us the light, the lamp to follow him. Just continue to walk in fellowship with God and ask God to use you. Ask God to help you this week to bump into somebody and turn a conversation toward Jesus so that you can talk to somebody about him. So you can invite somebody to church. So you can just tell somebody about what God is doing in your life. Look for ways. You say, it's not much, is it? Man, if you change somebody's life for eternity, what joy. Ask God to use you. So just because we have to say goodbye to some seasons of life, like these folks did, it doesn't mean life is over. It means that God just simply has another chapter for us. It's like as you're reading a book. You read a chapter and you've done that chapter, you change pages, and it's a new chapter. And that's what life is often all about. Another new chapter in life. Sometimes the older we get, we're like, I don't like this new chapter. And God says, I know, but that's the chapter you're in. And here's the thing, I'm going to help you get through that chapter, just like I did the previous 50 or 60 or 80 chapters of your life. I will be faithful. I will guide you. And so like these folks had to rebuild, remember this. He held them fast. And no matter what you're facing this week, this month, this upcoming year, remember this. God is faithful, and he will hold